قال الله والله Yehovah Shem Yoshai, Vasham Rakakadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule and teach world peace and salutations to the brothers on the four corners of this earth, pushing this word in truth and in sincerity. But I'm gonna have to back once again here with another short and punchy video. You know, um, so let me go straight to the article. You know, what I mean, just the title of the article alone. Yeah, the scripture say what? Esau accomplished a diligent search, by accomplished a diligent search. Right? It says a common vitamin has a complicated link to cancer, experts reveal. It says we've all heard the advice: eat your fruit and vegetables, get your vitamins and stay healthy. For the most part, that guidance holds up, but some nutrients have a more complicated story, and vitamin B12 is a fascinating example. Also known as cobalamin, B12 is essential for life. It helps the body produce red blood cells, keeps the nervous system functioning, and plays essential role in how cells copy and repair DNA. B12 is found naturally in animal products such as meat, fish, eggs, milk, and cheese. Some cereals and breads are also fortified with it, helping people who do not eat meat get enough. Most people following a varied diet get the recommended amount, but vegans, people with certain gut conditions, and other adults who absorb nutrients less efficiently may need supplements. Without enough B12, things can go wrong. Something seriously, especially if deficiency is not recognized and treated. Yet in recent years, researchers have been asking whether high levels of B12 intake or high levels of B12 in the blood could be linked to cancer. It says the body is constantly making new cells. Every time a cell divides, it needs to copy its DNA accurately. Vitamin B12 is critical to that process, which, when like when levels low are too low, DNA can be copied incorrectly, leading to mutations that over many years may increase the risk of certain cancers, particularly colon cancer. This is why B12 deficiency is taken seriously. A 2025 case control study from Vietnam found what researchers described as a U-shaped relationship between B12 intake and cancer risk, with both lower and higher intakes associated with increased risk. Because this kind of study can show an association but cannot prove cause and effect, the takeaway is not that B12 is dangerous, it is that balance matters. It might seem logical that if B12 helps healthy cells thrive, taking extra doses should offer extra protection against cancer, but research does not fully support this. Vitamin B12 supports cell growth generally, not only the growth of healthy cells. One concern is that if precancerous cells are already present, very high availability of growth supporting nutrients such as B12 could, in theory, support their growth too, but this remains difficult to prove in humans. Alright, so a study was done, and what they're saying is basically they have no fucking conclusive answer. This is more or less fear mongering then. Wow. It says overall studies of high dose B12 supplements taken over long periods have not shown clear positive effects against cancer incidence or cancer deaths. One analyst did report a reduced risk of melanoma, but this was a cancer specific finding rather than evidence that high dose B vitamins prevent cancer generally. Some observational research has also suggested a slight increase in lung cancer risk linked to long term high dose B6 and B12 supplementation perfectly, so like practically among men and smokers, although this kind of study cannot prove that the supplements cause the cancers. It says doctors have noticed that many cancer patients show unusually high levels of B12 in the blood. This raises an important question: elevated B12 contribute to cancer, or can cancer itself cause B12 levels to rise? It says the effect is throughout. Slovakia research in 2022 concluded that high B12 in cancer patients is often an epiphenomenon. In other words, the vitamins appear alongside the disease but does not necessarily trigger it. Further research from 2024 reached a similar conclusion. The effect is thought to involve two main mechanisms. First, tumors can affect the liver, which stores large amounts of B12. When the liver is damaged and under strain, it may release more B12 into the bloodstream. Secondly, some tumors may increase proteins that bind to B12 in the blood. This can push blood test readings higher without necessarily meaning the body cells are receiving or using more B12. Researchers are also recognizing that elevated B12 may not be a cause of cancer, but it could be a useful marker of whether cancer is present or progressing. A large 2026 study found that colon cancer patients with very high B12 levels survived a median of around 5 years compared to nearly 11 years for those with normal levels. Okay, alright. I'm gonna go to so, okay. I'm gonna go to the book of Deuteronomy 28, and I believe it's 47, 44, 45, or something. What's it like? Alright, it's 48, like Deuteronomy 28 and 48. It says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies which Yahweh shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Right? In want of all things. The foods that they mass producing in labs, chemically altered, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? Taste, feel, react when they cook. Well, you know, it react to heat. Just, or in other words, it's cooked just like chicken. And here they shout, "I never run around on two legs in its life. It come from a canister in a lab." Right? They go research that causing cancer, you know, the research and fucking vitamins they can get from egg and so on and so forth. But nevertheless, the scripture say what we will serve, we will go to enemies for want of all things. New thing to eat, thing to drink, clothing, shelter, all these things. The enemy will never do anything for your benefit. They're always for your what demise, your downfall, your doom. So you have to remember that. All right, it's not just about the food we have now not good. They made it that way. They tainted it. They corrupted it that way. You know, to end with what a certain result or a certain effect. Right, and now they're saying even the vitamins and all could be a problem. But the only foods that notice the foods that you're getting that one vitamin from naturally, right, are all things that they play with all the food. No lie, they play with all the food. Right? So either way you're doomed. That's how you know, hey, there's your enemy, bye. This is your enemy. This is your enemy. Mm. Psalm 64 and 6. They search out iniquities, they accomplish a diligent search, but the inward thought of every one of them, and the heart is deep. Alright? The inward thought is deep. So don't feel that they're doing something today for tomorrow. Now they're doing something today for 15, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. For you to see effects just like this. Right? These are the things that Esau Edom does. You know, because the people might say we always blaming them. They in charge of the kingdom. They in charge of this kingdom right now. The Lord put them to rule this kingdom. Alright? We know we suffering under the curses. We suffering by their hand. Right? But hey, we know the Lord coming to change that soon. So we not really worried. We just trying to maintain patience right now. And I say we are speaking of the men of the Lord, the men who serve Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Hakakadash. And that is how hard the times get now. Not even taking your vitamins could other could give you a long life or help you live a long, healthy life. You know, you could be cancer free until you start taking it, and then boom, all of a sudden you have cancer. Because I don't see how they say a study done and a study and a study, but you can't tell me if it does increase when cancer is present or is the high presence of it does cause cancer. You just don't know. You just don't know. You know? And that is why the scripture also said this. The scripture say what here a little and there a little, right? Isaiah 31 and 3 it says, now the Egyptians are men are not power, and their horses flesh and not spirit. When Yahweh shall stretch out his hand, both he that help it shall fall, and he that is holpen shall fall down, and they shall fail together. They all shall fail together. Yeah, you must fall down. All supplements or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? It's so hard to actually be healthy. The best bet is to do a plantain food, and you can't even do that in the United States. Because why? They're coming and taking away your farmland and so on and so forth. Heavily oppressed. Heavily oppressed. Heavily oppressed, bro. Yeah, go to 30 and verse 3, it says, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be ashamed, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. Yeah, because you go think, but wait, I told them said this was good for we, so that we do this, and that's like what the Jews there, they said this good for we, then boom, yeah, no, well, let's don't stop it. You could still get it, and you could still spread it. And what's the next one? Oh yeah, you wouldn't die from it. Yeah, but now you're having turbo fucking cancers, right? Now we're having turbo cancers. Oh, wow, what a life. What a life, man. And that just goes to show you the system we're living in and the enemies we're living under. Alright, so I hope the video was edifying. Hope it's for thought among the Akim once again. Through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakodash. Until next time, Shalom.